Hello everyone, welcome back to our paper mache bats tutorial. This is what part is this? This is part 5 of our paper mache bat tutorial. We have completely finished up both of the armatures. We've got the wings, cloth wings on our bat. This one's ready to go. It's been ready to go. So in this segment of the tutorial, we're going to start sculpting. So let's get right back at it. Alright, so in this section of the tutorial, you're only going to need a few things. You're obviously going to need some paper mache clay. You're going to need some paper mache paste and a paintbrush to apply the paper mache paste over your clay to smooth it out. And then if you want to add any kind of texture to your bat, which I'm going to do, I'm going to add some fur-like texture to it. You're going to need something to press in that texture. You can use a plastic fork. I have some other things that I'll use for smoothing. Plastic spoon, plastic knife, my other little smoothing or sculpting tools that I have here on hand. And then of course you're going to need your bats. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one bat at a time, and I'm going to start by claying over just the backs of them. Just the backs of the bat. And then I'm going to allow them to dry. Once they're dry completely, then I can flip them over and really start sculpting in the front of the bat, the face, the head, the little legs, the feet, and bringing them to life with some texture. But first things first, let's start applying the clay onto the back of our bats. Alright, so the first thing that I'm going to do on both of the bats is I'm going to apply a thin layer of clay over the backs of them. And then, of course, as usual, I will smooth over the clay. After I apply the clay, I will smooth it over using my paste and a paintbrush. So it's not rocket science, so I'm just going to start from the bottom here. And this does not need to be very thick. I'd say 1/8 of an inch is going to be fine. So I'm going to go ahead and cover the whole thing. I'm going to get into the sides here as well against these wings. Basically anything that's showing newspaper, except for the legs. I'm going to do the legs last. But anything on the back, except for the legs, I'm going to go ahead and apply this thin layer of clay here. Alright, I have my thin layer of clay layered on to the back of my bat, including the back of the ears. So any raw newspaper that was showing, including the edges here where the wings, those cloth wings connect to the body, I've put some clay in there as well. And the only thing that I didn't do the back of are the legs. And again, the legs are probably going to be one of the last things that I sculpt in, because I want to pay a little bit of attention to the feet and maybe add some little tiny talons to them. But now the process is I'm going to take my paper mache paste, which again I only use a flour and water mixture to a thin kind of pancake-like consistency. And I'm just going to apply that with a little bit of pressure with my brush and smooth all that clay in and around the edges there where the clay meets the wings. Going to get some of that in there really well. And I did clay around my little attachments on the back of this bat. This is the one that I intend on hanging either from maybe a ceiling or in an entryway, so it'll be suspended in the air using some fishing line. Or, you know, if I wanted, I could even hang it in a tree outside. So I did clay around those as well, being mindful not to get clay blocked up in the little holes that I'm going to thread my fishing line through. Alright, I've got that all smoothed over for good measure, but I'm not particularly concerned really about how the back of the bat looks, because again, once it's suspended, no one's really going to see the back. But if you wanted to, for good measure, you could take the back of a plastic spoon. You could even dip that in paste, and you could smooth it out even farther if you wanted. I did make sure that on my edges here, see if you can see my edges, I'm going to make sure to feather those in to that newspaper there, so that when I do the sculpt on the front, I'll be able to blend it in with the clay, the fresh clay that I'll put on the front. And one thing, if you want to do, if you wanted to apply some kind of texture, maybe like a fur-like texture or something to the back of your bats, you could certainly do that. What I normally do is I take a plastic fork, and I just sort of, not with the prongs or tines, not with the tines pointed down, because if you do that, all it's going to do is rip up your clay. It'll just displace it. So what I recommend, let me go in and smooth that back out. What I recommend is using with the tines down, and then you can just kind of press in. See how it's not really tearing up your clay that way, and just kind of press in some fur-like texture. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. And again, if this was the front of the bat, I would be paying a lot more attention to it. The other thing is, if your clay starts to get a little dry, you can dip your fork into the paste, and that will help you apply that texture as well. So that's basically what I use, or how I kind of sculpt in like a fur-like texture. Alright, so this guy, obviously, because the back of him has wet clay, I will not be able to flip him over and sculpt in anything on the front until this is completely dry. It's a nice sunny day outside, so what I'm going to do is put him outside in full sun, let him dry, and then probably within, 24 hours, this should be completely dry, or dry enough that I can flip him over and concentrate on sculpting out the front of the bat. So this guy's done. Let me get him out of the way for a minute. Alright, I've got my other bat here that has the cardboard wings, and I'm going to do the same thing on the back of him. I'm going to go ahead and sculpt or apply a thin layer of clay over the back of his head, the back of his ears, and this part of the wings, and then the back of the little legs here. Now, because these wings are thicker, in this area right here, obviously I'm going to have to apply a thicker amount of clay so that those things aren't standing out so much. So same thing that I've done with the cloth winged bat, I'm going to do with the cardboard wing bat. Put that layer of clay on the back, smooth it out using a paintbrush and my paper mache paste. I can smooth it out even further using the back of a plastic spoon, and then press in using a light dragging motion with that plastic fork, and sit them outside in the sun to dry. Once they're dry, I'll be able to get back at the front of it and really concentrate on bringing these things to life with the clay. All right, bat number 2. Bat number 2 here with the cardboard wings. That's going to be hanging upside down from this little tree branch. I've got that, the back clayed over from the back of the ears, back of his body, back of his legs. One thing that I do want to point out, when you're applying your clay to the back of the legs, do make sure that you get clay that's going to connect from that strip mache cardboard that we have on there to your piece of tree branch. Because once that dries, it's going to dry very solid, and that's really what's going to hold that up once we get all the clay on it, front and back. So again, we're at a stopping point, and as soon as these dry, we will be able to carry on with the front of our bats, sculpting those in, putting in all those really nice details, and bringing them to life. Well, that's a short tutorial on the first part of sculpting the back of our bats. I didn't really have a whole lot of time to work on it any further, but I wanted to get this, at least that portion of the video, out to you guys. Like a lot of things in life, stuff happens. My daughter has been very sick, so I haven't had a whole lot of time to work on the bats recently. But I do have some time coming up, and I'm going to go ahead and start filming the second part of the sculpting the front of the bats. So thank you for your patience. I will get to it as soon as possible, start filming that and get that posted for you if you're following along. But before I go, I want to introduce you to two very special little girls here. So these two little girls are the Scarecrow Joe Studio mascots, the Scarecrow Joe Studio rats. This one right here, she's a mama rat. Her name is Stella. And that one back there, that's actually one of her babies, and her name is Luna. They're really cool, very smart little creatures. So you'll probably be seeing them every once in a while in my videos. Maybe I should make some paper mache rats. That might be a good idea. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll get right back to the paper mache bats tutorial. Catch you on the next one.